Our Clever Essentials apps combine the apps that most of your customers on Dynamics 365 Business Central will find invaluable, putting it into one easy-to-purchase set. Working across Business Central, it makes entering, finding, storing, sending, and printing information easier and quicker. Then, to top it off, it adds the credit rules your customers need for their accounts. On installing any of our apps, your customers will get a month's trial per app. The app's trial expiration date will not be set at that point. It will only be when your customer starts using the app that the trial period will start. After the trial has ended, there are several options that you can present to your customers. One option is to purchase the app. With that, your customer's expiration date is extended, and any apps where we are applying credits will also be added to their license. Another option is to take on our freemium model. Although not yet applied to all of our apps, we have a few currently set up. The freemium model allows your customers to sit within a range that consumes a lower number of credits per month and is free. By default, your customer will get 50 credits per app per month to consume. You should know we don't roll over credits, so if they're not used up in 1 month, they are simply topped up to meet the default in the next month. You might be asking yourself if the functionality changes between the freemium model, paid model, and trial version. With any of the options chosen, the functionality of the app will be the same. We want to make sure that your customer gets the most of our apps, however they obtain them. So why choose Clever Essentials? Well, for one, it makes getting all the right information quick and easy from Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, and that's all done without having to depend on other colleagues or countless pieces of paper. Let's start our Clever Essentials journey with Clever Document Links. This app lets you drag and drop any document to any record, securely storing it in Dynamics 365 Business Central or SharePoint. For example, against an item, you can hold any product information, images, drawings, or drag and drop an email sent through from a vendor to a purchase order. Here is a quick example of how easy it is to take a document and store it against a record in Dynamics 365 Business Central. I'm going to take a drawing and link it to an item. I'll first go to my items and find the record that I want to link my document to. I then take my document and simply drag it from its saved location and drop it in the drop zone. If successful, my document is now linked to my record. As I move through the other records, we can see if there are any documents that have been linked to them. Another area in which we can look at for linked documents is the linked documents list. In here, we have a history of all documents that have been linked to records. More so, your users can go through and see which documents have been linked to which records. You can, of course, link multiple records to one document. Instead of using the fact box, as I have done in my example, you can use the Doc Links process page. To get to this page, we use the search and navigate. Here we have our document and we can link it to multiple records. This, unlike the previous way in which I linked a document to a record is more of a manual process. However, it allows your users to see which records you're going to be linking that particular document to. Once your users are happy, they simply click on the Post Selected option, which will then post that through, linking that document to those two selected records. We then move on to Clever Document Delivery. This app makes sending your documents quick and easy. With a click of a few buttons, you can have all your statements for month ends sent to your customers. Being able to customize who receives the document at the other end means that they can be actioned quicker because the right person in the right department is dealing with it. Let's be honest, Bob in the warehouse doesn't need to deal with the invoices. Here we will look to show you a quick example of how to send out a posted sales invoice. We will first look to the setup behind it, understanding who the document will go out to and what will be sent out. Remember, the Clever Document Delivery app allows you to also send attachments. So it's not just about sending the posted sales invoice. Alongside that, you might be sending your terms and conditions, or you might be sending other documents linked to the posted sales invoice. So we'll start with the document delivery setup page. This is a very generic page. The settings are global throughout how the app is used. One setting that I have enabled is the test mode function. What that allows your customers to do is test the app before they're ready to actually send out documents. So this is making sure that the email body is how they want it to be and making sure the attachments that they are attaching to those invoices, as in this example, are correct and that they're merging correctly, that all the records are showing up how they want them to be showing up and working within document delivery. We then move to our document type. So the document type breaks down how a document will be sent to a customer or vendor, from the body of the email to the person receiving it at the other end. So when we're looking to set up the document type, we're making sure that it's set up how it should be, so that in later stages, when your customers come to send the documents, they don't have to set up anything different. They don't have to change anything around the document type. This is the core of how your documents will be sent out. So we're looking at the reports that we're sending out. We're looking at the attachments behind it. So as I said earlier, the sales invoice, we're also sending out the terms and conditions with it. If you're looking at the email body, we're making sure that we're pulling through the correct fields from the correct places. So we're making sure that the records that we highlight, so the invoices, the numbers are pulling through correctly. The name of who that document is being sent to is pulling through correctly. So once we're happy with our setup, we'll then look to send our documents out. So at the beginning, we said in our example that we were going to be sending out a posted sales invoice. So I'm going to be highlighting multiple records and showing you how it will look and how that will work when we're sending those documents out. It's important as well to know that documents only get sent out based on whether they're highlighted or not. So any documents that we're not highlighting aren't going out via document delivery when we click that send button. So in the document type selection screen, this will pop up because we have selected multiple records. And what it allows your users to do is just see what document type is going to be sent out. So in our case, the posted sales invoice, because we've done it off the posted sales invoice list. It will show the users the records that they're going to be sending out, so which invoices. If they had any grouping set up at document type, it would also show the grouping level. So it might be a case of, rather than a customer receiving 6 emails of 6 different invoices, the document type can be set up to say, okay, send 1 email to that customer and attach the 6 invoices to them. So again, it depends on how your customer wants to work and the kind of relationship they have with their customers as to how the document should be sent out. We can also see just in here the details section. So it tells your users, a little bit of information, especially as to who the documents are being sent out to. Remember at the beginning, we put the app in test mode. So it'll be the test mode email that all these documents are going out to. Once we're happy, we click on the send button. If at that point there are any errors in the log, so for example an email can't be found or there's some setup issues, then the document log would pop up and it would highlight what those issues are. If all successful, as in this case, then the document log won't pop up. But we can have a look at the document log just to see. So we can see our documents are highlighted at the bottom just here. We can see when they were sent out, who they're being sent out to. If the document was stored, your users can also open those documents and they can see physically what was sent out to the customer. For any error messages, those will be flagged up in here as errored, and we can click on the error message to see it in more detail. It's important to know that the log will record everything, and this is where the freemium version comes into play with its credits. With document delivery, we are applying credits as part of the app. So a consumption of one of those credits is an entry within the log itself. So here we've consumed several credits just by sending out those invoices, and that will reflect on the actual license itself. So when we come to show you the license page a little bit later on, you'll be able to see how the credits have been reduced. It's also worth knowing that when a document is processed, so it's flagged as processed, it doesn't necessarily mean it got to the other end. Okay, so if your customers have firewalls or it's gone to junk or something like that, we're not aware of what's at the other end. We just know that it has left the environment in which it's been sent out in, therefore it has been processed and it's successful. Next in the Essentials package is Clever Credit. When installed alongside a Clever Document Delivery, your customers can make a huge impact from a financial standpoint. The app can be split into two. The first side is holding the orders, making sure your customers' orders are still being taken but not processed. The processing side of it can be down to certain measures put in place, so overdue balances, credit limits. Here we will show you an example of how simple an order can be held, looking at the setup around the customer and the app to show you why that order went on hold. We'll start by creating a simple sales order. As we start to put the sales lines on, the notifications at the top will appear. This is to indicate to the users that this particular sales order for this particular customer has exceeded the credit limit for that customer. This is both visible in the fact box, just down here, and we can also see those details if we click on here. This warns the user that on release of the sales order, it will go into credit held. Here we get a notification to tell us that it has been credit held, and the credit status has changed to credit held. Our standard status is still left as open for now. There are two ways in which our credit controllers can manage sales orders that have been credit held. They can go to the credit held list, where they can see all the orders for all the customers that have been held, or from within the sales order, the credit status can be managed. To do so, we click on Actions, Functions, Clever Credit, and Manage Credit Status. We can now see our order in our credit held list, and providing the credit controller has the right authorization levels, they can process and release that sales order. If we now go back to our sales order, we can see that our credit status is credit released, the order has been released, and it can now be processed through to the warehouse, to invoicing, and so on. The other side of Clever Credit has features designed to assist credit controllers in the chasing of debts and ensuring timely payment, as well as helping with recording of promised payment dates and ensuring they are followed up. We'll start with the Clever Credit screen. This is a page that most of your credit controllers will sit on. It allows them to see all the information that they need from this one screen. We can see by the colour indicators here that certain debt has gone on for far too long and needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. We can see here that the customer, although is not quite as highlighted in red, still has a fair amount of debt and has been going on for quite a while. As that debt moves over, or moves along, should I say, that colour will change. It will become more red, more bolder, and tell the credit controller that they need to urgently respond to that customer to deal with their outstanding debts and to essentially allow their orders to be processed through. For this customer, it could be that their orders are on credit held because they have overdue balances, outstanding payments that need to be made. So we'll start with this customer just here. So by clicking on the amount itself, okay, it will take us to the customer ledger entries, and from within here we can then do what's called make a phone call. This creates an interaction. Okay, and an interaction can be dealt with one of two ways. It can just be that of an interaction. So we've tried to call the customer, might have left some notes, left some messages. Those can be recorded against the interaction. Another type of interaction is what we call a to-do. So that's a follow-up essentially. So that might be where you've put in the next interaction date and then a follow-up has been created so that somebody has to call that customer back, has to chase them on the payment that they've promised, etc. And you're selecting which entries you're talking to the customer about. So we're saying in this particular instance, this is the invoice that we're calling the customer about, and the notes that have been applied to this interaction are against this particular invoice. It's during the chasing of the debt where having document delivery installed as well will make a huge difference. So without document delivery installed, we don't have the statement button at the top here, we don't have the send email or the queue email. As soon as we install document delivery alongside Clever Credit, we now have these extra functions up here. And what it allows us to do is, based on the entry that we've selected, the invoice, by clicking on send email, it will send out that particular invoice to the customer. So the scenario could be your credit controller is on the phone to a customer, they're having a conversation with that customer about an invoice, and the customer says on the phone, I don't seem to have a record of that invoice. Could you send it to me? Call me back later and we can discuss it. Instead, your credit controller can send the invoice while still on the phone to the customer, keeping the interaction going, maybe even getting payment out of it. Because what we tend to find is when credit controllers hang up the phone, the customer will take a week to get back to them, and that debt continues to progress and the orders continue to be held until payments are made. So having it again all in the one screen makes it easier for your credit controllers to manage. Following on from Clever Credit, we have the Clever Data Validation templates. So these templates specify what data is mandatory for each master record. So when a new customer, supplier, item and resources are added, Clever Data Validation highlights if any required data is missing or invalid. This in turn will help you later when you're trying to process an order and a message pops up saying you are missing incorrect data. So let's start by creating our data validation. To create our data validation templates, we need to go to the data validation template setup page. So in here, if you don't have any, you'll click New. I already have one, so we'll take this particular one and we'll break down how I've set it up. Each validation template is given a code. We set it against a table, so we know when we're running the template which table it's running against, and you give a set of rules, so what you're looking for. In this particular template, I'm checking the posting groups and tying it in with Clever Credit. I'm also checking the credit limit. For each one, I'm saying it must match a particular value. And at the same time, I've also displayed an error message. So if any of my records fail on any of these particular rules, the error message will be obvious to the user what data is missing. From here, we can click on the Validate Data action. And then we highlight the records that we want to validate. And it's important to understand that it's only the highlighted records that the validation template will run against. So it won't run against the ones at the bottom just here, which haven't been selected. If I now click OK, it will run through and it will error on any of the records that are missing any of the bits of data that I've put into that particular template. So we can see here what the current field is, what the value is that they found, and we can see the error message. So for a user, they know that the credit limit must have a value in it, what the value is, and more importantly, which records have failed in the validation. We can also run the data validation from the list itself. So we go to our customer list. Again, we select the records that we want to validate. And this time, we go validate data. And again, it will run through our data validation template. It will look to the rules that I've set up. It will check the records, and any missing bits of data as part of the template will be highlighted in this list here. Easy error messages so that your users understand what is missing, what the current field value is, and more importantly, which customers are missing those vital bits of data. After Clever Data Validation comes Clever Global Search. This app allows you to easily find records in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. You have a simple page to search across multiple tables. On a single screen, you can see the information that is important to you. We'll start by showing you the Global Search template screen. So to get to the Global Search template screen, use the Navigate and go to the setup page. The default config that you run as part of Global Search on install will put in all these tables and include a set of fields to search against. This is just so you can install the app quite quickly and start using it. Like any of the default data that we put in, you can go in and change it yourself. So if your customers have bespoke fields or even bespoke tables, you might want to add those as part of the search. You can set table filters. So against our sales orders, we can see that the filter we've applied is only to check if the document type is order. As I mentioned, any bespoke fields, you can include those at the bottom here. And at all times, the index must be up to date. If any changes are made within this setup screen just here, and you come out of the page, you'll be asked to update the index, or you can do it manually from within here using the actions at the top. Once you're happy that all the search has been set up, it's just a case of running it. Now you can run it from two places. You can go to the global search screen and you can run your search from within here. Or you can use our shortcut key function to run the page from anywhere as well. So you're not having to use the search and then typing Clever Global Search. You can just run the shortcut key function and that will open the page. Either way, you're going to be sat within here. You type in your search and it will pull through where it has found a combination of phrases or where that phrase occurs. With the Clever Global Search for, you can also use wildcards, so you don't have to fill in the whole word that you're looking for. It will just look for part of a word. So now we have our search records. We can see where it's matching that data that I've put in. It's against a sell to customer for a sales order for this particular customer, and this is the text that it's matching it against. From within here, we can then obfuscate our data. So we help comply with GDPR by adding the capability to obfuscate the data, so replacing it with a number series code. And to do that, you highlight the record that you want to obfuscate and you click on Obfuscate Data. You'll then get a notification saying the one selected record will be placed with codes in the obfuscation number series. Do you want to continue? Yes or no? Yes. Our record has now been removed because we no longer have matching data, and that now sits in our obfuscated data list. So here we can see what the value was previously and what it has been replaced as. And if we were to go to that particular sales order and find that particular value on the sales order, we will see that it has now been replaced by our number series. And this is to hide maybe emails and things like that your users shouldn't be seeing and shouldn't be using as part of marketing. The app in itself is all completely customizable. You can control table by table, field by field, what data you would like to be included. And as we mentioned, it means that your custom tables can quickly be included. Our final app is Clever PrintNode. The Clever PrintNode integration works with PrintNode Cloud printing services to bring back the key aspects of printing in Dynamics 365 Business Central. Clever PrintNode integration allows users to look up the list of available printers connected to your PrintNode account and once again create printer selections. You can even look up the available trays for each printer. The setup of Clever PrintNode integration could not be more simpler. If we go to the actual setup page, you have an API key, an API description, and an API endpoint. All can be obtained through us as a child account or through PrintNode themselves. When all 3 bits of data are populated, it will allow your users to see the printers available to them. And as mentioned, use those printers to set up printer selections in Business Central. We can even test the connection from within here to make sure that it is working correctly. To conclude our presentation, let's review. We have a package of 6 apps working alongside each other, each filling a gap in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Those apps include Clever Credit, Clever Document Delivery, Clever Document Links, Clever Global Search, Clever Data Validation, and Clever PrintNode Integration. To find out more information, please go to any of these links below. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.